So, how are your kidneys? That's the question posed to us today by Catholic Answers, which isn't so much interested in providing answers as they are in pushing dogma. It's another case of making excuses for why your apologetics outreach fails so miserably. Can we honestly say we're surprised? This is, I'm guessing, a segment of a Catholic podcast or something like that. Honestly, I can't be bothered to go find out the details. But these people aren't remotely interested in the truth. I mean, what apologist is? They just want to keep spreading that same old religious fertilizer and hoping, desperately, that something springs up. Yet, the only thing that we ever seem to get is the stench. So let's see what the Catholics have to say, and why, as is really no surprise, all religions get this completely wrong. Just no truth. And for all of those flying words, most of them, perhaps all of them, were repeated more than once. You'd think they could have cut out the duplication and maybe, just maybe, thrown in some facts or evidence somewhere. You know, things that actually make sense. Oh, wait a minute, what am I talking about? They've got none of that.
You wouldn't believe it, but Anne-Marie here, she walked in from Lexington, Kentucky as well.
They walked in, all three of them.
All three of them, carrying twin boys.
Well, actually, the two babies didn't walk in technically.
Anne-Marie, I know you have a question for Tim. Before I let you ask that question, I just want to say thanks for naming the boys Cy and Tim. I appreciate that. I was really excited to get that news.
Yes.
I bet your husband Ray is excited to get that news too.
What? That would be, I don't know, Cy Ten Bruggencate and Tim LaHaye? I mean, seriously, if you're going to go naming your kids after people, and you want to do this stupidly and religiously, you might as well go for broke. But yeah, I'm not really here to make fun of people's names. I'm just not sure why they included this bit in their short answers video. It looks like it's just there to take up space. So, guys, come on, get to the actual questions.
What's your question for Tim?
Absolutely. So my question is, how do you, we have so many people in our lives, friends, how do you balance loving someone versus, and calling them out, like when you know that they're in the wrong maybe?
You make sure that they're actually in the wrong first. This is something that's a constant problem with the religious because they assume, not verify, not prove, assume that they're right in everything that they believe simply because they believe it. It's something that I see around here all the time. You get theists driving by and throwing insults at us, telling us that we're going to hell without being able to show that hell is real in the first place. They aren't concerned. It doesn't matter to them. They believe it. It makes them feel good. That's all they care about. But to the rest of us, it just makes them look like morons.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good question, an important question, because, of course, 2 of the 6 spiritual works of mercy, as we see in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2447, are admonishing the sinner and educating the unlearned.
Funny how these people never seem to get it through their heads that they themselves are the unlearned, right? Because they really don't care about the truth. As far as they're concerned, their truth, and that's truth with quotes there, is the only truth that matters. It's one reason why it's so hysterical to watch debates between disparate theists. They've got nothing intelligent to say to each other. All they can do is demand that they're right and the other guy is wrong, and the other guy is doing the same thing back. It's kind of a hoot.
So those are very important. We're going to be judged by God as to whether or not we did these things, right?
Is it? I mean, really, is it? Because that's the claim. but you haven't proven that the claim is at all reasonable or rational or, most importantly, factually correct. And of course, this is yet another religious channel with their comments disabled, so that people outside of their little tiny echo chamber can't come by and tell them that their thinking is faulty. You know, because they might be able to have an intellectual dialogue with someone who doesn't buy into their base assumptions. Nope, can't have that, so shut them down.
So I think here's the key. 2 major points. Number 1, there is no such thing as this is how you do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and then they convert.
Funny, the Catholic Church, if I remember right, they seem to have a lot of rules. It won't convert anyone. They're hemorrhaging members like crazy. But saying that there's no right way to do something seems kind of counterintuitive coming from a group that seems to have a specific methodology for pretty much everything. I'm really not sure how you square those two.
I wish it would work that way, but it really doesn't. The key is, first and foremost, I always point folks to James chapter 1 verse 5 that says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives liberally and upbraideth not.
You mean that imaginary God of yours that won't even provide unambiguous evidence that he's real? Because if you lack wisdom, as these people clearly do, it seems to me that the first thing you do is confirm that your source of information is actually valid. It doesn't really matter what you believe. It doesn't matter how your beliefs make you feel. Your beliefs have to accurately represent reality. If you want to perform brain surgery, you don't go asking your stuffed teddy bear for advice. You seek out someone who demonstrably has credible knowledge and the ability to pass that knowledge on to you, and ask them. Now, I hate to say it, but this magical man in the sky that Catholics bow down to, he's never been independently and objectively shown to be real. Nor has any of the supposed words of this imaginary God thing been shown to be valuable, period. This is why apologetics, Christian and otherwise, fail so miserably all the time. It's why STR keeps warning their students that they're going to screw up. When your beliefs aren't based on reality, your record is going to be spotty at best.
In other words, he will never say no. He will always give you wisdom if you ask for it.
Hey God, prove you're real. I'm just asking for wisdom. You're not supposed to say no, right? So, I'm standing by. Let me have it.
Of course, I always point out the caveat here. Often it takes time. Wisdom comes through pain. It comes through experience and failure. But God will give you wisdom over time.
And how do you tell the difference between God not existing at all, and thus obviously not giving you any wisdom, and God just slacking off and taking, I don't know, 1,000,000 years to get back to you, at which point you're just dead? Because it seems like the religious always have an excuse for why nothing that they ever say comes true. God answers all prayers. Eventually. Maybe. Probably not in any demonstrable way, but anything that happens, anything that they can interpret as God responding, even if God has nothing at all to do with it, well, there's your answer. Are these people listening to how dumb they sound?
And the implication is, of course, you don't just ask once. We have to continually ask God for wisdom, because wisdom helps us to be able to know how to choose between goods. What's good, what's better, what's best. That's what's so important about wisdom.
Wait a minute. So, are you telling us that God is going to give you options? God doesn't care which one's best for you. He's just going to throw whatever he has handy at the moment your way, and you have to know which one is the turd and which one is the diamond. And you believe this? Really? You can't be serious.
Now, second point is, in the situation you're talking about, you're the friend. And that is the most important thing. We emphasize here, don't we, a lot, Si, that friendship evangelism. You know, my good friend Steve Ray will often say this. You can, if you were to meet a stranger on the street and you walk up to him and say, "Hey, how are your kidneys?" He's going to look at you like you're crazy and walk in the other direction. Get this guy away from me.
Just like any rational person will do if you walk up to them and want to talk about a magical man in the sky. Get the hell away from me, you lunatic! Call the men in the white coats. We have an escapee. But the religious never recognize that they're that guy, the one that people groan at when they see you coming down the street, the one that people avoid at all costs. Now, I've got a couple of distant family members, and I think I've said this before, that are hyper-religious. I mean, they're worldwide travelers spreading the gospel. They're the kind of people who can't help but mention Jesus 110 times in a 3-minute conversation. They have managed to ostracize themselves from pretty much everyone they know because they're so annoying. Now, I used to live within a couple miles of them for about 17 years, and other than catching sight of them at a grocery store once in a while, I actively avoided having anything at all to do with them. I wouldn't respond to them at all. They used to want to get together a lot. I pretended I never heard from them. I have no idea what actually happened to them, and really, I don't care. Their son got married and moved in order to get away from them. He couldn't take it anymore. Those are the kinds of people that these Catholic apologists remind me of. Stop worrying about people's kidneys and seek psychological help.
But what if you got to know that guy, went out for beers, you become friends, and a year later, you hear he has some problems with his kidneys. You walk up to him in the street and you say, "Hey, how are your kidneys?"
And he says, "There's nothing wrong with my kidneys. Go away, you psycho." Because honestly, if he wanted you to know his problems, he'd tell you. It's really none of your business otherwise. Now, if he starts that conversation and says, "Hey, let me tell you about my kidneys," that's one thing. He brought it up. But this is where the religious go so completely wrong. If I want to know about your religion, I'll ask you. I'll bring it up. Then, feel free to tell me all the things about your imaginary friend and your silly book of mythology. But unless I ask, I just don't care. I have no interest in being preached to. So keep it to yourself unless someone requests that you open your mouth. But will the religious do that? Hell no.
He says, "Oh, thanks for asking, man." Same words, same person, but what's the difference? Friendship.
Yes, you're using your pre-existing relationships to force your views on someone who probably doesn't want them. You've gotten them to lower their barriers so that you can worm your way in there and fill their head with your religious mind poison. But you won't look at it that way, will you?
Friendship. So the fact that you're friends and you know the person, that is an open door for you. But it doesn't mean you come barging through. Because friendship takes time and love and openness. And that's why you pray to God for, "God, show me when the door is open so that I can share."
But I'm willing to bet that the sharing doesn't go both ways, does it? This is why I always laugh at people like Andy Bannister and his so-called quote-unquote atheist friends. He doesn't have any. He's terrified to talk to atheists, but apparently he's got friends, right? But if you think that you get to abuse your friendships so that you can share your ridiculous faith, why is it not equally acceptable for your atheist friend to point out the absurdity of the things that you believe? Friendship is give and take. I'm sure that if someone you knew opened their mouth and criticized Catholicism, you'd scream bloody murder. "Don't you dare push your beliefs on me." But when you're doing it to them, it's not only fine, but apparently your imaginary friend orders it.
Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work. We fall into the error all the time of thinking, we confuse faithfulness with success.
Yep, they're doing the exact same thing. share the gospel, but expect to fail miserably. It's because Christianity is a cult and nobody likes a cult. Nobody. But you all act cultish, and you have to realize why you get the cold shoulder as often as you do. People don't like that. Most of them are too smart for it. But you can't change your tune, so you have to change your expectations. It's almost like these people know that what they're doing is wrong.
And of course, just because if you feel like God's opened the door and you share with them, you know what? You're a little bit off right here. Let me explain why.
But if anyone tries to explain to you that you're a little bit off, you don't want to hear it. That's why your comments are closed, right?
And you do it in a loving way, you may get, hammered. Doesn't mean you messed up. Because sometimes, of course, even the best of us get crucified. Yeah, in fact, the very best of us got crucified for speaking the truth, and that is Jesus Christ.
Well, that's the story at least, but we're not interested in stories. If you get hammered, it's because you earned it. You said something stupid. You pretended that your unsupportable beliefs are somehow true without being able to verify that they're actually true. That doesn't impress anyone, but that's why you people operate top down. You speak, others listen, but they can't respond. You're the teacher, but you don't want to learn anything. That kind of describes the vast majority of Christians, doesn't it?
But we have to, I believe, Si, on our side, do everything we can not to be jerks.
And exactly when do you think you're going to get to that? Because being an ass is part and parcel with being an apologist. Like it or not, you have an obligation to ensure that the things that you preach are worth preaching, that they're actually true, not just that you believe it, not just that you want them to be true, but that they actually are true. Otherwise, you're a con man. You're selling snake oil. And considering how many theists we see with their comments closed, saying demonstrably ridiculous things, I think it's clear where you fall on the credibility scale.
All right? Jesus never said, blessed are the jerks. I did not see that in Matthew 5, blessed are the jerks.
So why do you people insist on acting like jerks? This isn't about how you feel. It's about saying things that have no basis whatsoever in reality. There is absolutely no difference between Catholics and flat earthers. They all follow the same conspiracy theorist model. They all push an emotionally derived narrative and hide from reality when it gets in the way of their blind faith. Now, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned this in a video a long time ago, but there's a lot of similarities between religion and conspiracy theorists. They both follow the same playbook. If there's any interest, maybe I'll put together a video on it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you want to see it.
But I do see blessed are the merciful. Right? And so if we have love and we have mercy in our hearts, and this is understood as a spiritual work of mercy, and we share it when we believe God opens the door, let God take care of the rest.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. God bless
Thanks,
you.
Anne-Marie.
And that's a really common claim, that it's not up to you to convert anyone. It's all on God. You know, that imaginary man with no evidence that he exists. And when you think about it, this is just another way to shift the burden of proof and the burden of responsibility. It's not my fault that I couldn't convince Jim. It's all on God. I didn't fail. God did. I set the whole thing up, and God didn't follow through. I think this is becoming more prevalent because in the modern world, religious apologetics is failing a whole lot more often than it's succeeding. Nobody wants to talk to the Jehovah's Witness at the door. Nobody wants to stop and engage with the religious crazy on the soapbox. These are no longer worthwhile ways to spend your time. Most of us just walk away and ignore the lunatics. On very rare occasions these days, I might engage if I'm in the right mood and I've got nothing better to do. But 20 years ago, I would engage every single time. I think I've just realized that they've got nothing intelligent to say, and it really doesn't matter what I say in return. They're just going to ignore it. So really, what's the point? They aren't going into any discussions honestly, so why try? I've got better things to do with my time. It's hard to imagine having anything worse to do. So anyway, what about you? How are your kidneys? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you all later.
Bum